The USS Horizon drifted silently through the void, its sleek silver hull reflecting the distant starlight as it approached the massive Corvin space station. Inside the ship, the human delegation prepared for the most important diplomatic meeting in Earth's history. Jack Carter struggled to keep his eyes open as he shuffled through the corridor. His wrinkled uniform stood out among the crisp attire of the diplomats and military officers. Dark circles framed his bloodshot eyes, a testament to the 72 hours he had spent perfecting the propulsion system for this mission. "Carter, you look terrible," said Captain Alan Hayes, frowning at the engineer's disheveled appearance. Jack ran a hand through his messy brown hair. "Just finishing the stabilizers, sir. Couldn't let us arrive with fluctuating warp fields. Bad first impression." We're supposed to sleep after that," Captain Hayes sighed. "This is a diplomatic mission. You're only here to explain our propulsion technology if they ask." "I'll be fine," Jack mumbled, fumbling with his tablet. "Just need more coffee." The delegation gathered in the shuttle bay. Ambassador Frank Miller stood at the front, his silver hair and perfect posture projecting the dignity of Earth. Various experts in science, culture, and military matters lined up behind him. Jack slumped against the wall, barely noticed among the 20 selected representatives. "Remember," Ambassador Miller addressed the group, "the Corvins reached out to us. This could be the beginning of a new era for humanity. They're technologically advanced but seem interested in peaceful exchange. Let's make Earth proud." The shuttle ride to the Corvin station felt eternal to Jack. He fought micro-sleeps as Ambassador Miller briefed them one last time. The Corvins had made contact 6 months ago, expressing interest in Earth's unique approach to space travel. Their message hinted at a possible alliance and technology exchange. When the shuttle docked, Jack was immediately struck by the scale of Corvin engineering. The docking bay alone could fit 3 Earth shuttles side by side, with ceilings that soared nearly 30 feet high. The architecture featured sweeping curves and materials that seemed to shift color with changing light. A group of Corvins waited for them. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with blue-tinted skin and elongated limbs. Their faces bore 4 eyes, 2 large central ones and 2 smaller ones near their temples. They wore fitted uniforms with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with energy. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the lead Corvin said, their translator device creating perfect English. "I am High Chancellor Zexvor. We are pleased to begin discussions between our peoples." Ambassador Miller stepped forward and offered the traditional Earth greeting, extending his hand. After a moment of hesitation, the High Chancellor mimicked the gesture. "The pleasure is ours, High Chancellor. We hope this marks the beginning of a fruitful relationship between our worlds." The Corvins led them through vast corridors to a meeting hall. Jack trailed at the back, trying to focus on the amazing technology around him rather than his desperate need for sleep. He noticed details the others missed, the slight inconsistencies in the wall panels that suggested hidden compartments, the subtle hum of energy that didn't match the visible power systems. In the Great Hall, they were seated at a massive U-shaped table. The human delegation took one side while Corvin officials filled the other. Jack found himself at the far end, practically forgotten. "Your journey across the stars shows your species' determination," High Chancellor Zexvor began. "We have observed Earth for some time and find your adaptability interesting." Ambassador Miller smiled. "We've come a long way from our first steps into space. We're eager to learn from your civilization's greater experience." The discussions began pleasantly. The Corvins asked about Earth's cultures, governance, and technology. They seemed particularly interested in how humans had overcome resource limitations and environmental challenges. Jack tried to follow the conversation, but exhaustion pulled at him. His head nodded forward, then snapped back up when Ambassador Miller mentioned propulsion systems. "Our engineer Carter has revolutionized our warp capabilities," Miller said, gesturing toward Jack. "Perhaps he could explain the principles to your scientists later." The High Chancellor's 4 eyes focused on Jack, who straightened in his chair. "Yes," Zexvor said slowly. "We would be most interested in that." As the meeting continued, Jack noticed subtle changes in the Corvins' behavior. Their questions became more probing, asking about Earth's defenses, population centers, and military response protocols. What had begun as diplomatic exchange was starting to feel like an interrogation. During a brief recess, Jack approached Ambassador Miller with his concerns. "Sir, something doesn't feel right." The questions they're asking, Miller cut him off. "Carter, you're sleep-deprived and paranoid. The Corvins are simply curious about their new neighbors. Go get some rest before you embarrass us." Dismissed. Jack wandered the permitted areas of the station, his engineering mind unable to shut down despite his exhaustion. He found himself in an observation deck, staring out at the stars when he overheard two Corvins speaking. His translator device picked up their words. "The humans are even more primitive than we thought," one said. "Their biological limitations are amusing." "High Command was right to suggest diplomacy first," the other replied. "Why waste Drakthor resources when they might surrender without fighting? The Drakthor units are already being prepared. The human homeworld will fall quickly once deployed." Jack froze, suddenly very awake. He slowly backed away and returned to the human quarters, his mind racing. No one would believe him, the sleep-deprived engineer with wild accusations. He needed proof. That night, while the rest of the delegation slept, Jack used his engineering access to slip into the maintenance systems. His knowledge of propulsion technology translated surprisingly well to the Corvin station's design. He found a service tunnel and followed it, eventually reaching a restricted area. What he saw confirmed his fears. Through a viewport, he observed a massive chamber where hundreds of blue-skinned Corvin warriors were training. But these weren't normal Corvins. They stood 8 feet tall, with bulging muscles and modified faces that looked more predatory. Their movements were impossibly fast as they dismantled combat drones with ruthless efficiency. Jack recorded everything with his tablet. He had to warn the others. But as he turned to leave, an alarm sounded throughout the station. He rushed back toward the human quarters, but arrived too late. Corvin security forces were already there, led by High Chancellor Zexvor himself. "Your primitive attempts at deception were transparent," the Chancellor announced to the confused human delegation. "Earth refused our previous subjects' warnings about resistance. Now you will witness the consequence." The security doors sealed shut, and from a side entrance, 3 of the modified Corvins entered the room. Up close they were even more terrifying. "Allow me to introduce the Drakthor," Zexvor said with pride. "The perfect evolutionary advancement of our species. Your Earth military will face thousands of these superior warriors." Ambassador Miller stepped forward. "We came in peace. This is unprovoked aggression against..." A Drakthor moved with blinding speed, knocking the ambassador unconscious before he could finish his sentence. In the chaos that followed, no one noticed Jack slip away. While the Drakthor rounded up the humans, Jack retreated into a maintenance shaft he'd discovered earlier. Fear and adrenaline temporarily overcame his exhaustion as he crawled through the narrow space. The Corvins had never intended peace. Earth needed to be warned. But first, Jack needed to survive. With nothing but his engineering tools and a mind that worked in strange ways when sleep-deprived, he began planning his resistance against an empire that had just revealed its true face. 3 months passed. Jack Carter lived like a ghost in the walls of the Corvin station. His beard had grown wild and his uniform hung loose on his thinning frame. Sleep came only in short bursts, never more than 2 hours at a time. He survived, on nutrition packets stolen from storage and stimulant pills he found in the medical bay. The maintenance tunnels became his home. Jack created a small hideout in an abandoned cooling junction where sensor blind spots overlapped. He filled the space with scavenged tools, spare parts, and screens he had rewired to monitor Corvin communications. Day 94. Jack mumbled to his tablet, recording another video log. The Drakthor training has intensified. They're preparing for something big. His eyes were sunken, his speech occasionally slurred from exhaustion, yet his mind remained sharp in an unusual way. The constant sleep deprivation had pushed his brain into a strange state where connections formed between ideas that others might never link together. Jack had spent weeks studying the Drakthor. He recorded their training sessions, analyzed their movements, and even collected biological samples from their quarters during their rest cycles. His engineer's mind, twisted by exhaustion, saw patterns no one else would notice. Meanwhile, light, years away, Commander Lisa Reeves stood before the Earth Defense Council. The large meeting room was filled with military leaders and government officials, their faces grim. "The Corvan Empire has taken the Jupiter colony," she reported, pointing to the holographic map. "That's the 5th human settlement lost in 2 months. Admiral Greg Pearson slammed his fist on the table. "Nothing works against those Drakthor soldiers. They're faster than our best troops, shrug off standard weapons, and seem to need no rest." "The Mars garrison reported the same," another officer added. 20 of our best soldiers against 5 Drakthor. We lost everyone." Commander Reeves took a deep breath. "We may have an unexpected resource. We've intercepted Corvan communications about a human still alive on their central station. They call him the Ghost in the Walls." The room fell silent. Intelligence suggests it's Jack Carter, an engineer from the original diplomatic mission. He's been evading capture for 3 months and apparently causing significant disruptions to Corvan operations. Admiral Pearson frowned. "Carter? The sleep-deprived mess who nearly fell asleep during the mission briefing? How could he possibly survive?" "Unknown, sir, but Corvan communications show increasing concern about his activities. They've diverted resources from their military campaign to find him." A scientist named Dr. Mia Sanchez spoke up. "I knew Carter, at NASA. Brilliant mind, especially when sleep-deprived. His brain makes connections others miss. If he's studying the Drakthor up close." "You're suggesting we rescue one engineer when entire colonies are falling?" Admiral Pearson asked. "Commander," Reeves nodded firmly. "That's exactly what I'm suggesting. Carter may have insights about the Drakthor that we desperately need." Back on the Corvan station, Jack crawled through a ventilation shaft. Below him, 2 Drakthor soldiers stood guard outside a command center. Jack had learned to time his movements with the station's power cycles, when the subtle vibrations masked any sounds he made. He reached into his pocket and removed a small device he had built from scavenged parts. It looked like a mess of wires and components, but Jack had designed it with his unique, sleep-deprived logic. He dropped it through a vent, then quickly retreated. The device hit the floor with a small clatter. The Drakthor turned, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to pinpoint the sound instantly. They approached the device cautiously. A few seconds later, it emitted a high-pitched pulse that was barely audible to human ears. The Drakthor, however, dropped to their knees, clutching, their heads in pain. Their enhanced senses, normally an advantage, had become a weakness. Jack smiled to himself. It was his 3rd successful test of the sonic disruptor. Each time he refined the frequency based on his observations of Drakthor biology. "They're perfect soldiers," he whispered to himself. "But perfect doesn't mean without weaknesses." When the Drakthor recovered and left to report the incident, Jack slipped into the command center. He connected his tablet to their systems and downloaded more intelligence about their planned attack on Earth's main colony on Proxima Centauri. As he worked, the lack of sleep made the edges of his vision blur. Jack sometimes couldn't tell if he was awake or dreaming. In these moments, his mind made connections that even he couldn't explain until later. While downloading the attack plans, Jack noticed something in the Drakthor biological files. Their enhanced physiology required constant chemical balance. The Corvans had eliminated the need for sleep in their supersoldiers, but at a cost. The Drakthor needed regular treatments to maintain their enhanced state. "Every strength has a corresponding weakness," Jack muttered, adding this information to his growing collection of Drakthor vulnerabilities. On Earth, Commander Reeves briefed her small team. Captain Natalie Winters, their best stealth operative, would lead the extraction mission. "This is Jack Carter," Reeves said, showing them his personnel file. "Our mission is to find him and bring him back, along with any intelligence he's gathered." "With respect, Commander," Captain Winters said, "we're risking 5 elite soldiers to rescue one engineer who's probably lost his mind after 3 months in isolation. Is this really our best use of resources?" Commander Reeves understood the concern. The Corvins have devoted significant resources to finding him. That tells me he's more valuable than we might think. Besides, we've tried everything else. Q. Team prepared for the most dangerous mission of their careers. Their stealth ship, the Phantom, was equipped with experimental cloaking technology that might get them past Corvin defenses. Meanwhile, Jack's condition worsened. Days without proper sleep were taking their toll. He experienced hallucinations, now sometimes seeing people from Earth standing beside him in the tunnels. Yet somehow his work continued. He built more devices, each designed to exploit different Drakthor weaknesses. Jack tested them when possible, documenting the results in his increasingly erratic video logs. Their enhanced metabolism, he explained, to his tablet, eyes unfocused, creates a dependence on specific chemical regulators. Disrupt those and their perfect bodies become their greatest vulnerability. Jack's latest creation was his most ambitious. He called it the Sandman device, a name that made him laugh in his delirious state. It was designed to interfere with the chemical treatments that kept the Drakthor functioning without sleep. As he worked, Jack didn't notice the small stealth ship approaching the station. Captain Winters and her team used the confusion caused by Jack's latest diversion to dock undetected in a maintenance bay. The extraction team moved silently through the station, following the trail of disruptions Jack had left over the past months. They encountered 2 Drakthor patrols but managed to avoid detection. When they finally located Jack's hideout, they were shocked by what they found. The walls were covered in equations, diagrams, and observations written directly onto the metal surfaces. Makeshift devices in various stages of completion littered every surface. In the center sat Jack, tinkering with a complex device, muttering to himself. "Jack Carter," Captain Winters said softly. Jack turned slowly, his bloodshot eyes widening. "You're not hallucinations this time, are you?" "No, we're real. We've come to take you home." Jack shook his head. "Can't leave yet. Almost finished. The Sandman device. It's the key." Captain Winters glanced at her team. This man looked half dead, but his hideout contained more intelligence about the Drakthor than Earth had gathered in 3 months of fighting. "We need to move now," one of her team whispered urgently. "Our window is closing." Jack grabbed his tablet and the half-finished device. "I can show Earth how to beat them. They think they're perfect, but perfection is inflexible. Humans bend, adapt. That's our advantage." As they helped Jack gather his research, an alarm blared throughout the station. Their extraction window had closed. The rescue had just become much more complicated. The alarm blared through the Corvin station. Red lights flashed in the corridors as security protocols activated. Captain Winters grabbed Jack's arm. "We need to move now," she said. "Do you know a safe route to our ship?" Jack nodded, his eyes unfocused. "Maintenance Tunnel J7 connects to your docking area. The Drakthor are too big to follow us there." One of Winters' team, a soldier named Kyle, looked skeptical. "Can we trust his judgment? He looks half dead." "We don't have a choice," Captain Winters replied. She turned to Jack. "Lead the way." Jack gathered his tablet and the half-finished Sandman device, stuffing them into a makeshift bag. His movements were sluggish but purposeful. The rescue team followed him to a small panel in the wall that he quickly opened, revealing a narrow tunnel. "Stay close," Jack whispered, "and step exactly where I step. I've mapped the safe zones where sensors can't reach." They crawled through the tight space, Jack navigating with the instinct of someone who had lived in these tunnels for months. The sounds of Drakthor search parties echoed through the station. "How have you survived this long?" asked Winters as they moved. Jack's eyes seemed to look through her, rather than at her. "They think logically. I stopped thinking logically about 6 weeks ago. Sleep deprivation is my superpower." He laughed softly, the sound slightly unsettling. They reached a junction where 3 tunnels met. Jack hesitated. "Problem?" Winters asked. "Can't remember if it's left or right," Jack admitted. "My memory gets patchy." The sounds of pursuit grew louder. One of the team members, a woman named Olivia, checked her scanner. "Right tunnel has power signatures. Could be near our exit point." Jack shook his head suddenly. "No, it's left," I remember now. I marked it. He pointed to a small symbol scratched into the metal that only someone looking for it would notice. They took the left tunnel, moving as quickly as possible in the confined space. After several minutes, they reached another panel. Jack worked the manual release and they emerged into a service corridor one level above the maintenance docking bay. Almost there, Winters said. Just need to descend one more level. But as they approached the stairs, two Drakthor soldiers appeared at the corridor's end. The Supersoldiers' four eyes locked onto the group immediately, and they moved with frightening speed. "Run!" Winters shouted. Jack fumbled in his pocket and pulled out one of his homemade devices. "Wait, I have something for them." He twisted two components and threw the device toward the Drakthor. It skidded across the floor, stopping at their feet. The soldiers looked down at it unimpressed. Then it activated. A high-pitched sound, barely audible to the humans, emanated from the small device. The effect on the Drakthor was immediate. They stumbled, their enhanced senses overwhelmed by the frequency. Their coordinated movements became jerky and uncontrolled. "Now we run," Jack said. They raced down the stairs to the docking level. Two more Drakthor guards stood by the entrance to the maintenance bay where the rescue ship waited. Captain Winters signaled her team to take cover. "Any more tricks?" she asked Jack. He shook his head. "Used my only sonic disruptor. Could build another if we had 2 hours and a soldering iron." Kyle, the team's weapons specialist, checked his rifle. Standard. Weapons barely slow these things down. Jack studied the guards from their hiding spot. His sleep-deprived mind made connections that surprised even him. "The neck armor," he whispered. "It's reinforced to protect the chemical regulator implant. That's their weakness. Hit them there, between the second and third armor plate." Kyle looked doubtful but adjusted his aim. He fired 2 precise shots. Each bullet found the gap Jack had identified and both Drakthor collapsed instantly. "How did you know that?" Winters asked. Jack tapped his temple. "Been watching them. When they train, their handlers always protect that spot. Figured it was important." They moved quickly to the ship. Once inside, the pilot initiated launch procedures while Winters secured Jack in a seat. His eyes darted around the ship's interior, taking in the technology with the curiosity of an engineer despite his exhausted state. "Earth sent a stealth ship just for me?" he asked, his voice slurring slightly. "You've become very important, Mr. Carter," Winters explained. "The information you've gathered could change the course of this war." The ship detached from the station. Using minimal power to avoid detection, they drifted away before engaging their main engines. The Corvin station grew smaller behind them. Jack's adrenaline began to fade, and the weight of months of sleep deprivation pressed down on him. His eyelids grew heavy. "Stay with us, Jack," Winters said. "We need you to explain what you've learned." Jack struggled to focus. "The Drakthor, they're not as perfect as the Corvins think. Their enhancements create dependencies. Without regular chemical treatments, their systems destabilize." He pulled out his tablet and showed them his notes. The screen displayed diagrams of Drakthor biology, chemical formulas, and pages of observations written in increasingly erratic handwriting. "My Sandman device targets their chemical balance," Jack continued. "Makes them experience something they've never felt before. Fatigue. Their perfect bodies don't know how to handle it." The ship's doctor, a woman named Diane, examined Jack while he spoke. She looked concerned. "He's suffering from extreme sleep deprivation," she told Winters, quietly. "It's a miracle his organs haven't shut down. He needs medical attention immediately." Jack overheard her. "Can't sleep yet, too much to do, need to finish the device." "You will," Winters assured him. "But first, we need to get you safely to Earth." The journey back to Earth took 3 days. Jack drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes working feverishly on his notes, other times staring blankly at the wall. The doctor managed to get him to sleep for short periods, but he always woke with a start, his mind racing with new ideas. When they finally reached Earth's secret base on the moon, a team of scientists was waiting. Among them was Dr. Mia Sanchez, who had worked with Jack at NASA years before. The rescue team helped Jack off the ship. His legs nearly gave out from weakness, but he clutched his tablet and the half-finished Sandman device like treasures. Dr. Sanchez approached him cautiously. "Jack, do you remember me?" Jack's unfocused eyes gradually centered on her face. Recognition flickered. "Mia, Quantum Propulsion Team. You still owe me $5 from that bet about wave function." She smiled, relieved that his mind was still intact despite his condition. "We'll get to that. But first, let's get you to medical." "No. Time," Jack insisted. "Need to show you what I found. The Drakthor aren't invincible, they're just untested." Commander Reeves had arrived to meet the ship. She stood with Admiral Pearson, watching Jack with cautious optimism. "Is this what our hopes rest on?" the Admiral asked skeptically. "A half-dead engineer who's been awake for 3 months?" Commander Reeves nodded. "Sometimes our greatest strengths come from unexpected places, sir." As medical staff led Jack away, he turned suddenly and locked eyes with the Admiral. "Perfect soldiers are predictable," Jack said with surprising clarity. "Humans are adaptable. That's why we'll win." The Admiral watched Jack disappear into the medical bay. "I hope you're right, Commander. I hope you're right." Inside the medical center, Jack finally allowed himself to be examined. But he refused to part with his tablet or the Sandman device. Even as they hooked him up to monitors and IV fluids, his hands moved over the device, making small adjustments. "Jack, you need to rest," Dr. Sanchez urged him. Jack looked up, his bloodshot eyes intense. "I will, after I show you how to beat them. The Drakthor have never been tired. They've never had to think while exhausted, but I have. And that's how I found their weakness." The doctors exchanged concerned glances, but Dr. Sanchez understood. She pulled up a chair beside his bed. "Show me everything," she said. Jack smiled, for the first time in months. "It starts with their chemical regulators." For the next 2 weeks, Jack worked with Earth scientists in the moon-based laboratory. The doctors insisted he get at least 4 hours of sleep each night. Though he often woke after just 2 or 3, his mind buzzing with new ideas. His beard was trimmed, and he had gained back some weight, but the dark circles under his eyes remained. Dr. Mia Sanchez worked closely with him, helping translate his sometimes jumbled thoughts into practical applications. Together, they refined the Sandman device. "The Drakthor have never experienced tiredness," Jack explained to a room full of scientists and military officers. His hands moved constantly as he spoke, fidgeting with tools or components. "Their bodies are chemically balanced to maintain peak performance at all times." He pointed to a holographic display showing the biology of a Drakthor soldier. "But that's their weakness. Their bodies don't know how to handle fatigue. They have no coping mechanisms for it." Admiral Pearson frowned. "So your device makes them tired?" "Not exactly," Jack said. "It disrupts the chemical regulators that prevent fatigue, forces their enhanced systems to experience something like extreme exhaustion all at once. Their perfect bodies crash without warning." Dr. Sanchez stepped forward. "We've tested a prototype on tissue samples obtained from the Drakthor that Jack collected during his time on the station. The results are promising." Commander Reeves, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "How long until we have a working field version?" Jack and Dr. Sanchez exchanged glances. "The prototype is functional," Jack said, "but its range is limited to about 50 feet. To affect an entire battlefield, we need something bigger." "We need time to scale it up," Dr. Sanchez added. "Admiral," Pearson shook his head. "Time is the one thing we don't have. The Corvins are preparing to attack our main colony on Proxima Centauri B. Intel suggests they'll deploy at least 200 Drakthor soldiers." The room fell silent. Proxima Centauri B was humanity's most developed off-world colony, home to over 50,000 people. If it fell, Earth would be next. Jack stared at the holographic display, his sleep-deprived mind making connections others missed. What if we don't try to cover the whole battlefield at once? What if we target their command structure instead? He began typing rapidly on his tablet, bringing up Corvin military formations he had observed. Drakthor units always maintain perfect formation. It's part of their programming. They position their commanders here and here. He pointed to specific spots in the formation. If we can take out their command units, the rest will be much less effective. They're designed to be perfect soldiers, not independent thinkers. Commander Reeves studied the formations. We could deploy smaller versions of your device at these key points. Target their leadership specifically. Jack nodded, his eyes brightening with excitement. Exactly, and I have an idea for delivering them. Over the next 3 days, Jack barely slept at all. He and Dr. Sanchez worked around the clock, developing what he called the Sandman Protocol, a multi-layered strategy to counter the Drakthor forces. They designed 5 compact Sandman devices, each programmed to target the specific chemical signatures of Drakthor command units. These would be delivered by stealth drones that Captain Winter's team would pilot. The colony on Proxima Centauri B prepared for battle. Civilian shelters were reinforced, and all available military personnel took defensive positions. Earth sent every ship it could spare, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough against the Drakthor. As the Earth fleet neared Proxima Centauri B, Jack, Commander Reeves, and Captain Winters gathered on the bridge of the command ship, the Defiant. The Corvan fleet has been detected entering the system, a sensor officer reported. 23 ships, including their main carrier that houses the Drakthor forces. Admiral Pearson turned to Jack. This is our last stand, Mr. Carter. I hope your Sandman protocol works. Jack didn't respond immediately. He stared out the viewport, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, but his mind still working. The Corvans think they're fighting a conventional war. They don't know what it's like to face an opponent who changes the rules. The battle began in orbit around Proxima Centauri B. Earth ships engaged the Corvan fleet, fighting desperately to prevent them from landing their forces. But the Corvans had superior firepower and slowly pushed through Earth's defenses. They're breaking through Sector 7, reported an officer. Landing craft are heading for the colony's main settlement. Commander Reeves nodded to Captain Winters. Launch the stealth drones. Get our teams into position. As the battle raged on the surface, Captain Winters and her Special Forces team maneuvered through the chaos. They carried the 5 Sandman devices, each about the size of a small backpack. Their mission was to plant them at strategic points around the battlefield, where Corvan command units would be stationed. Jack remained on the Defiant, monitoring the situation. His hands trembled from caffeine and exhaustion as he tracked the positions of Winters' team on a tactical display. First device in position, Winters reported over the comm. Moving to Location 2. The colony's defense forces were losing ground quickly. The Drakthor moved with terrifying efficiency, overwhelming Earth's soldiers with their superior strength and speed. Medical teams struggled to keep up with the casualties. Second and third devices placed, Winters reported. Taking heavy fire near Location 4, Jack watched anxiously as her team navigated through the battlefield. 2 of her soldiers were hit, and 1 of the devices was damaged. We can't reach Position 5, Winters said, her voice strained. The Drakthor have it completely surrounded. Jack studied the tactical display. The 4 devices might be enough if we recalibrate their output. His fingers flew over the controls, sending new settings to the devices. Captain, activate devices 1 through 4 on my mark, he said. 3, 2, 1, mark. Across the battlefield, the 4 Sandman devices activated simultaneously. They emitted no visible energy, no sound or light that human senses could detect. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, in the areas surrounding the devices, the Drakthor faltered. Their perfectly coordinated movements became erratic. Some stumbled while others froze in place. The command units were hit hardest, dropping to their knees as their enhanced bodies experienced exhaustion for the first time. It's working, Winters reported. The Drakthor in our sector are disoriented. They're vulnerable. Commander Reeves immediately gave orders to the defense forces. All units push forward, target the affected Drakthor first. Earth soldiers, who had been on the verge of defeat, rallied. They focused their fire on the disoriented Supersoldiers, taking advantage of their unexpected weakness. On the Defiant, Jack watched the tactical display with bloodshot eyes. The effect won't last long, he warned. Their systems will try to compensate. Indeed, some Drakthor were already beginning to recover, their bodies fighting against the induced fatigue, but their perfect coordination was broken. For the first time, the Supersoldiers were making mistakes. Admiral Pearson turned to Jack. "Can you boost the effect?" Jack shook his head. "Not without overloading the devices, but we don't need to. Look." He pointed to the display, where the pattern of battle had completely changed. The Earth forces had adapted quickly, fighting in smaller, more flexible units that targeted vulnerable Drakthor. Meanwhile, the Supersoldiers struggled to maintain their rigid formations and strategies. "The Drakthor don't know how to fight when they're not at peak performance," Jack explained. "Humans do it all the time. We're used to adapting, to being tired, to fighting anyway." As they watched, the tide of battle slowly turned. The Earth forces pushed the Drakthor back, reclaiming lost ground. For the first time since the war began, the Corvins were retreating. "We might actually win this," Admiral Pearson said in disbelief. Jack nodded, finally allowing himself a small smile. "Perfect soldiers are trained for perfect conditions. Humans are trained for chaos, and we just brought the chaos." The battle for Proxima Centauri B raged for 2 more days. The Drakthor soldiers fought to regain their advantage, but the Sandman devices continued to disrupt their perfect coordination. Earth's forces, though fewer in number, adapted to the changing battlefield with a flexibility the Supersoldiers couldn't match. Jack remained aboard the Defiant, constantly monitoring and adjusting the Sandman devices. He refused to sleep while the battle continued, existing on coffee and energy. Bar's Dr. Sanchez stayed by his side, ensuring the devices remained stable. "Their pattern is changing," Jack noted on the 3rd day, pointing to the tactical display. "The Drakthor are pulling back to their ships." Commander Reeves studied the display. "Are they retreating?" "I think so," Jack said. "Look at their formation. It's defensive now, not offensive." Admiral Pearson joined them at the display. "Could be a trick. The Corvins don't give up easily." "It's not a trick," Jack insisted. "They're protecting their remaining command units. Without those, the entire Drakthor force loses cohesion." As they watched, the Corvin ships began to disengage from battle. Their landing craft lifted off from the surface, carrying the surviving Drakthor soldiers. "They're actually retreating," Admiral Pearson said in disbelief. "We won." A cheer erupted across the bridge. Officers hugged each other, some crying with relief. After months of defeats, humanity had finally scored a victory against the seemingly invincible Corvin Empire. Jack didn't join the celebration. He slumped in his chair, the adrenaline that had kept him going finally fading. His eyes struggled to stay open. "You did it, Jack," Dr. Sanchez said softly. "You found their weakness." Jack shook his head slightly. "Not me. Us. All of us. Human adaptability beat Corvin perfection." 3 days later, as cleanup and rebuilding began on Proxima Centauri B, something unexpected happened. A single Corvin vessel approached Earth's orbit under a flag of truce. It requested permission to send a diplomatic party to discuss terms. In the lunar base meeting room, Jack sat with Earth's leaders. He had finally gotten some real sleep, nearly 20 hours straight, and looked slightly more alive. His mind was clearer, though the habit of thinking in strange connections remained. "They want to talk peace?" Jack asked. "After everything they did?" Commander Reeves nodded. "Their ambassador is already on the way. This is a direct result of what happened at Proxima Centauri B." Admiral Pearson's expression remained skeptical. "We need to be cautious. This could be another trap." "I don't think so," Jack said. "The Corvins value efficiency above all else. They won't waste resources on a war they might lose." An hour later, the Corvin ambassador arrived. To everyone's surprise, it wasn't a typical Corvin but a smaller, less physically imposing member of their species. Its 4 eyes studied the humans carefully as it entered the room. "I am Diplomatic Envoy Zexnor," it said through a translator. "I come on behalf of the Corvin High Command." Admiral Pearson stood. "We're prepared to hear your terms." The Corvin's eyes fixed on Jack. Is this the engineer who created the weapon used against our Drakthor forces? Jack returned the gaze steadily. I am. Fascinating, the Corvan said. Our scientists believed no human could survive the conditions you endured on our station. Yet you not only survived, but studied our greatest military achievement and found its flaw. Jack shrugged. Your super soldiers are impressive, but they have a critical weakness. They've never experienced failure or imperfection. They don't know how to adapt when things go wrong. The Corvan ambassador was silent for a moment. This has been educational for our empire. We have always valued perfection, believing it to be the ultimate goal of any species. Yet your imperfect bodies achieved what our perfect soldiers could not. That's humanity for you, Jack said with a small smile. We're messy, tired, and sometimes barely functioning, but we keep going anyway. The peace negotiations proceeded over the next several days. The Corvans agreed to withdraw from human territory and establish clear boundaries between their empire and Earth's colonies. In exchange, Earth agreed not to use the Sandman technology offensively against Corvan worlds. A week after the treaty was signed, Jack sat in a lab on the lunar base, tinkering with a new device. Though he had finally caught up on sleep, he found he still worked best when slightly sleep-deprived. Dr. Sanchez entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. I thought I might find you here, she said, handing him a cup. Everyone else is celebrating the peace treaty. Jack accepted the coffee gratefully. Just wanted to finish this prototype. It's based on some Corvan tech I studied on their station. The war is over, Jack. You can rest now. He smiled. I know, but there's so much we can learn from each other. The Corvan's precision combined with our adaptability could lead to amazing innovations. Dr. Sanchez sat beside him. The Corvan ambassador has requested your presence at tomorrow's technology exchange meeting. Apparently their engineers are fascinated by how you modified their systems with limited resources. They want to meet me? The sleep-deprived mess who broke their perfect soldiers? Especially you, she said. You've changed how they see humans. Before, they thought we were primitive and weak. Now they see our adaptability as a strength they lack. Jack set down his tools and leaned back. You know what's funny? If they had just asked nicely to learn about our technology in the first place, we could have avoided the whole war. Speaking of technology, Dr. Sanchez said, Commander Reeves wants to know if you'd consider heading up a new research division, combining Corvan precision with human innovation. Jack considered this. For the first time in months, his future contained possibilities beyond survival. I might be interested as long as coffee is provided. The next morning, Jack stood in Earth's new diplomatic center. Beside him were Commander Reeves, Dr. Sanchez, and Captain Winters. Across from them stood Zexnor and several Corvan engineers. Engineer Carter, Zexnor said, my colleagues have many questions about your methods. Jack nodded to the Corvans. I'm happy to explain, though some of it might not make sense. Sleep deprivation leads to some unusual thinking patterns. One of the Corvan engineers stepped forward. That is precisely what interests us. Our engineers are taught to think in specific, structured ways. Yet you created solutions we never considered. Different isn't always worse, Jack said. Sometimes it's exactly what you need. As the meeting progressed, humans and Corvans began to find common ground. Ideas flowed between the two species, each learning from the other's approach. Late that evening, Jack stood alone at a viewport, looking out at the stars. Commander Reeves joined him, offering a fresh cup of coffee. Quite a change from 3 months ago, she said. From prisoner to diplomat. Jack smiled. Still the same sleep-deprived engineer, though. Not quite the same, she replied. You helped save humanity, Jack. He shook his head. I just showed us how to use what makes us human. We're not perfect, and we never will be, but we keep going anyway. Adapt to whatever comes and somehow find a way through. Outside the viewport, Earth glowed blue and beautiful. Beyond it lay a galaxy full of possibilities. Not just for conflict, but for cooperation between different ways of thinking. Jack sipped his coffee and smiled. perfect is overrated anyway.